हैं निधि चौहान। इनका विषय है कल्चरल एनोमॉली एंड द ट्रांसलेशन ऑफ गोदान, एमिटी यूनिवर्सिटी।
Good afternoon, dignitaries and benign folks present here. Please do not mind my sore throat. So, the topic of my research paper is Cultural Anomaly in Translation of Godan. Since going in detail about this very topic, it's beyond the scope of this session. So I would revolve around the title itself. Talking about culture first. Culture, the notion of whole culture, it gives us a sense of ethnicity, language, and also heritage. You know, specifically if we talk about culture, it's basically the manifestation of human intelligence, isn't it? And when we introduce these cultures, or in fact we can say intercultural domain, what we see that we project so many cultures into one forum. That is, one person, for example, there are 2-3 people sitting in one room, and everyone comes from there, everyone has different ethnicity. Even it can be intracultural or it can be intercultural. So what happens is that there are different vistas of society that we come across and that we have already experienced, and then we put forward in our discourses. Secondly, talking about translation. So translation cannot be actually, it cannot be defined perfectly because it does not have any watertight compartments, you see. Translation, you can also say it is a culture specific communication, but there are always this uncertainty that's there in translation. And that is why, you know, there are so many Hindi speakers here. So for you to understand, if I can say translation as Anuvad, I can say Bhashantar, I can say Rupantar. Right? Change in forms, change in languages. That means translation, it can be transference as well, and that is why I say it is very, very difficult and complex to define this particular word translation. Now when we put culture and translation into one section, what we see, there arises few problems which I have discussed in detail about in my paper, taking the help of Godan. Now, there is some Godan by Munshi Premchand. He does not actually need introduction to the patrons of Hindi and Urdu literature here. So, I will actually focus on few points that I have discussed in my paper. So, first is the problem of cultural anomaly. So what cultural anomaly basically is, it's a very technical term. Now, cultural anomaly, it has arisen from this untranslatability. Okay, what happens when there are there are cultural barriers? Okay, because the target language and the source language, sometimes it doesn't allow you to translate one word from the other language, and that has already happened in Godan, because I read these two books. I have read the original one by Munshi Premchand, and then I read this Godan, the translated one by Jayaratan and Pilal. So there are few words, okay. For example, I'll tell you. Words like lotaful, chelam, chaprasi, hakim, ved, koti, gwala, mehto, dand, achkan, khaddar, and these kind of words. Now, there comes a dichotomy between this argument, okay. What happens? At one argument says that there should be strict precision and brevity with what a translator he should translate. And then that means translator is able to keep intact the novelty of the author. That's a very good thing. But the other argument says that he needs to be creative as well. So what is important? He keeping intact the novelty, the integrity and the propriety of the author, or is it important for him to be creative as well? Now I will keep this argument quite open-ended because I have still not found it out what is the best way, and that is why it's the research topic, and that's why it's debatable as well. Second point is that in the process of carrying across the peripheral linguistic layers of the text, translation also carries across certain deep layers wrought into cultural, ideological, ethnographic and gender constraints. That means that when we talk about cultural anomaly in translation, that means there are aesthetic and also political context available in translation. When a translator tries to translate the written text, and also it is said here comparative study. So there is this comparison always available, it's in fact a psychoanalytical process. It's always there in your subconscious mind, unconscious mind, and it comes to core, it comes to surface when you translate. So without taking much time, I would like to conclude that even at the linguistic level, translation requires analysis based on semiotic, formalistic and aesthetic perceptions. And translation is a cultural reconstruction with its own equation of power and dominance, center and margin, and that is why translators function as cultural ambassadors among language and culture. And Jayaratan and Pilal, they are a very prolific example and the exponent of the ideal translator, we can say. Thank you so much.
अगला पेपर प्रेजेंट करने के लिए हैं विजयभान आजाद।